"It'll fix this engine, I'll marry you." General laughed. Then black recruit. Fixed it in a few moves, the blazing sun scorched the airfield in Fort Harrison, a vast military base known for its elite aviation unit. Rows of mechanics and recruits moved in rhythm, engines roaring, tools clinking, commands echoing through the hangars. At the far end stood a massive aircraft, a C-17 transport jet, grounded for 3 days because no one could figure out what was wrong with its engine. Mechanics had tried everything. The brass was furious. The general himself, General Robert Stryker, was on his way to inspect it. When his jeep rolled up, everyone straightened. Stryker was a legend. A man known for his brutal honesty, old-school toughness, and iron discipline. 3 days, he barked, stepping out. 3 damn days and not one of you geniuses can fix a single engine? Silence. Sweat dripped down faces. Then, from behind the line, a young recruit stepped forward. Tall, dark-skinned, barely 21. His uniform was spotless, his eyes sharp but humble. "Permission to try, sir," he said firmly. Stryker turned, frowning. "And who the hell are you?" "Private Elijah Brooks, sir," the general laughed. You've been here what, 2 weeks?" "Yes, sir. But I used to work on turbofan engines back home. I might be able to help," Stryker chuckled, shaking his head. "Kid, if you fix this engine, I'll marry you myself." Laughter rippled through the squadron. Elijah didn't smile. He just nodded. "Permission granted, sir." Stryker waved his hand dismissively. "Be my guest." Elijah walked toward the massive jet, eyes narrowing as the metal glinted under the sun. The other mechanics backed up, curious, half smirking. He grabbed a wrench, crouched under the engine, and began tracing the pipes and couplings with delicate precision. For a few moments, there was only the sound of his tools clicking, then clang. Elijah's hand froze. He leaned closer to a section of tubing most had overlooked. A pressure valve buried beneath wiring. He tapped it gently, listening. The sound was off, too hollow. He looked up at the general. "Sir, with respect, your intake bypass valve's been cross-threaded. The pressure's locking the ignition system." The general blinked. "What?" Elijah spoke quickly but clearly. "If you keep running diagnostics, it'll never start. The system thinks it's overheating, but it's just trapped air. Give me 10 minutes." The general crossed his arms, smirking. "You've got 5. Elijah smiled faintly, then got to work. His hands moved with confidence, years of instinct guiding him. The other recruits watched as he stripped down the housing, reseated the valve, recalibrated the pressure lines, and cleaned a connector that had been corroded by condensation. Exactly 7 minutes later, he stepped back, wiping his forehead. "All right," he said. "Try it now." The general exchanged glances with his chief mechanic, who hesitated, then climbed into the cockpit. "Start sequence initiated," the mechanic called. The engine coughed once, twice, and then roared to life, smooth and steady as thunder rolling across the sky. Gasps and shouts erupted. Soldiers who'd been struggling for days now stared in awe. Stryker's smirk vanished. He looked from the roaring engine to Elijah, who stood quietly, hands behind his back. "Holy hell," the general muttered. Elijah simply said, "Sir, I believe you owe me a wedding proposal." The airfield burst into laughter. Even the general cracked a grin, shaking his head. "You've got guts, kid." He stepped forward and clapped Elijah on the shoulder. "Where the hell did you learn to do that?" "My father, sir," Elijah said softly. "He was an aircraft mechanic before he passed. Said every engine speaks if you listen long enough." Stryker studied him for a moment. The composure, the confidence, the quiet fire in his eyes. "You just made every man here look like a rookie," he said. "You ever think about engineering school?" Elijah hesitated. "Couldn't afford it, sir. Joined up instead." Stryker nodded slowly. "We'll see about that." Over the next few months, Elijah's reputation spread across the base. Whenever something broke, soldiers would joke, "Call Brooks, he'll fix it before lunch." But it wasn't just his skill. It was his attitude. Humble, focused, and relentless. Then, one morning, everything changed. During a live training exercise, one of the jets reported a critical failure mid-flight. Engine temperature spike. The pilot's voice crackled over the radio, panicked. "This is Bravo 3, losing thrust. I'm going down." Elijah was on the ground crew. Without thinking, he grabbed the radio. "Pilot, this is Brooks. Switch to backup feed, reset your left turbine bleed valve." The general, standing nearby, turned sharply. "Brooks, you better know what you're doing." "I do, sir," Elijah replied calmly. "Trust me." The next 10 seconds felt like a lifetime. Then, the pilot's voice came back. "Throttle restored. Stabilizing. Brooks, whatever you did, and it worked." Cheers erupted in the control tower. Stryker exhaled, muttering, "Unbelievable." Later that evening, the general found Elijah sitting by the runway, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and fire. "You saved a man's life today," Stryker said quietly. Elijah looked up. "Just did my job, sir." "No," the general said. "You did more than your job. You saw what no one else saw. Twice now. You've got something special, son." He handed Elijah a folder. Inside was a scholarship offer, fully funded, for the United States Air Force Engineering Program. Elijah froze. "Sir, Stryker smiled. "You earned it. And if anyone gives you trouble, tell them the general said he'd marry you." Elijah laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Years passed. Elijah graduated top of his class, designed revolutionary cooling systems for jet engines, and returned to Fort Harrison, not as a recruit, but as Chief Engineer Brooks. When he stepped onto that same runway again, soldiers saluted him, and waiting at the end of the line, older but still proud, was General Stryker. "You made it," the general said, shaking his hand. Elijah smiled. "Told you I would, sir," Stryker nodded. "I'll tell you something, Brooks. I've led armies, commanded thousands of men, but that day you fixed that engine. That was the day I learned something." "What's that, sir?" Elijah asked. "That real power doesn't come from rank or orders. It comes from knowledge, from heart, from believing in yourself when nobody else does." Elijah nodded quietly. "My father used to say the same thing." They stood together, watching a plane take off, the engines roaring like the voice of destiny itself. And when the wind rushed past them, carrying the scent of jet fuel and freedom, Stryker grinned. "If I'd kept my promise, Brooks, I'd be your wife by now." Elijah burst out laughing. "Sir, with all due respect, I think I dodged a bullet." The two men laughed together, soldier and student, mentor and friend, as the sky blazed orange above them. Morale. Never let laughter or doubt define your worth. Genius doesn't wear a uniform or come with permission. Sometimes the quietest person in the room carries the loudest answer, and one act of belief can rewrite your destiny.